I want to welcome everybody back to the September Eye on Piscataway, and we're fortunate enough to have with us in studio the Superintendent of Piscataway School Systems, Dr. Frank Ranelli. Frank, last year we talked about COVID protocols, what parents and students can expect, and there's always more issues that need to be spoken about, sure. So to speak. And so maybe what we should do is just have you start with an overview sure. of what the students and parents, and then we can get into the minutiae a little bit about the different grade levels and what they can expect. Sure. So why don't you take it away?
Yeah, I appreciate it. First of all, thank you for having me on. Again, this is the third year in a row. Yeah. I really appreciate this partnership. Is fantastic. I really appreciate that and your time. I sent out communication a couple of weeks back in the middle of August. I know this will air in the middle of September, but the middle of August, regarding COVID protocols and kind of the overall view of the district. In the letter, we talked about the COVID protocols being very similar to where we ended in June. Okay, masks being optional in school, hand washing stations, things of that nature. Protocols in the morning for arrival and dismissal, things like that. And so we are going to begin the year with similar protocols, with the COVID numbers hanging around, right? They're just hanging around for us, and they're not giving us that much of a break. So we're hopeful that we could wane those off a little bit, but we're going to start the year again with masks being optional and not frowned upon at all. We're encouraging people, whoever feels comfortable, to wear a mask, to do that anywhere. School buses, school extracurricular activities, things like that. And again, cleaning protocols and hand washing, safety, things like that are really what kids and parents should expect as they enter school in September. So this is up to the individual district through the Department of Education on what you can, working with the state health department, of what protocols can be set up. Correct. So they put out some guidelines that some are recommended, and there's only a few that are mandated still. And one being the certain amount of isolation, a 5-day isolation period for a positive case of COVID. But most of the other things are up to the school district, we adopt what's good for our district. There are many other districts in the state and in the county who do things very differently, but we feel very comfortable for the people of Piscataway. It's the right thing to do. So it's very interesting. We, as the home of Rutgers University, they came out with a different take on that, where I believe that they were going to be requiring, if in-person lecture halls, that you have to wear masks. Yeah, so there are some colleges, and I think Rutgers is the first one, or the only one still left doing that, that they feel it's really important that at least starting the school year, not to have this spread go through automatically, and then all of a sudden, by the middle of September, there's an outbreak where they have to shut down classes. And the lecture halls are much bigger things and like more that, students. More students from a varying part of the world, things of that nature. So it makes a little bit of sense for them, but for our school district, we were very successful in the spring with our protocols and keeping families and students and staff safe. So we're gonna start the year there and see where it goes. Now, what other state procedures have been recommended for the upcoming school year? So again, recommended would be the mask optional, would be testing for students and staff if we feel necessary, right? Okay. Again, recommended. Our district has we've never tested on site. Piscataway, and there's some districts who have and some districts who haven't. So that's recommended if we wanted to do that. Well, fortunately for us, we had a testing site here at the Erickson site. And we were very fortunate to be able to use that as well. And there were many testing sites and pharmacies and things, and some stakeholders who were more than willing to call up and say, look, send them to my place, it's great. Some Piscataway residents, so we were appreciative of that. Other protocols are some transportation, our hand washing stations, our water bottle filling stations, things like that. So those things that we can put in place or we already have, we're going to keep in place as well. Well, that's good. So we talked about some of the public health safety procedures that what parents and students can expect. What other recommendations has the state passed down as far as procedures that they've changed from last year to, like, for instance, I thought I read something that
testing there's certain testing procedures that normally in the past took place are now not going to take place.
Yeah, as far as COVID is concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they've really lessened the requirements on contact tracing, lessened the requirements on having to have a negative test to come back to school. If you have a positive case, a certain number of days from the onset of symptoms, you can come back. No doctors, no retesting, things like that. Extracurricular activities, like I said, in the spring, they lessened that requirement for all spectators and students to be able to interact without a mask. And there's no real limit on the number of people. We can go back to some normalcy, whatever that word looks like anymore, right? Some normalcy with how we operate pre-COVID.
All right, so we pretty much covered the public health realm right there. What else can parents expect when they drop their kids off or have their children picked up by bus?
Sure. So let me just make one more statement for the people watching. If you have any questions about COVID protocols, please call your school principal. The buildings might look a little different with the protocols and the logistics of the protocols, just because there's different setups, there's larger room, there's smaller rooms, things like that. So if any parents are concerned or have any questions, please call the school principal or the school nurse of the individual schools, and they'll be happy to answer any questions. So to move on to the next question, I think it's probably appropriate to talk about the district goals, as what people should expect the board and the district and the individual schools to try to do. The first one of our school goals is obviously wellness of the staff and students, whether it be health wellness, right, and safety, or emotional and mental wellness. We want to make sure that we're offering all the supports to kids and families, because we know these past 3 years have been the most difficult, not only in education, but every part of the world. So we really want to make sure that that's covered in our schools. So please, again, if you have any questions, parents, or need any supports, whether it be for your child in school, children out of school, or yourselves, please call the principal, and we'll be able to direct you to the right places. We have some partnerships with Rutgers and things like that can help entire families.
So I thought I said it last year and the year prior to that, during the height of the pandemic. I don't envy parents right now to get their kids educated. Yeah. Because I want to know, my wife and I, what we would have to go through with that. Well, we did. My son with the last year graduating in 2020, but
yeah, it's been difficult, and again, we're hoping that parents feel supported in what they need, and the kids feel supported. And hopefully we could, again, move into this and begin to get back to pre-COVID normal, whatever that looks like now. But we're really cognizant that these past 2.5, 3 years took a very bad toll on some people, and they need some way more supports than they have in the past. So we're prepared to do that, and we've talked about that as a district and as a board and administrative team for a long time now.
Now, what other goals are out there that with your support staff are going to be pushing for this year?
Yeah, so another one would also be the safety of the buildings, right? Unfortunately, in the spring, there was a series over a couple of months in the nation of some pretty bad things happening in supermarkets and schools and malls and things like that. So the overall safety of the district is a goal for us, to make sure that we have our evacuation and lockdown drills straight, to make sure we're partnering with Rutgers, with the Piscataway Police Department, with this office, to do everything we possibly can to minimize any damage and keep anything from happening. So that's a major goal for us every year.
Yeah, right. And I want to rest assured for all those parents out there that the school district does work very closely with our police department and what Dr. Ranelli was just speaking about. The last thing we want to see is something catastrophic like that happening in our community, or any other community for that matter. Sure.
And they've been very supportive. Tom Mosier and his team, whatever we need, they're there for us.
Okay. Now, I read in the newspaper, very peripherally, that the State Department of Education was changing how testing procedures for, I guess, 8th grade or 7th grade and high school or 11th grade, how they, I don't know, is
I'm chuckling a little bit because they change it all the time, and really we don't even know a final change right now. Whether or not
are these sort of like the end of the year exit tests?
Yes,
that
whereas the end of the year tests for juniors to be able to meet the criteria to graduate high school. For us to be able to kind of monitor and weigh, how we're doing versus other districts or versus other years that we have. And again, the testing remains, but we don't know what it means, right? There's word out there that the testing in the spring for the juniors would just still, again, be a field test because of what the juniors have gone through academically for the past couple of years.
And that was leading to my next question, is that I can understand why the State Department is trying to figure this out, because there's no doubt over the last 3 years that some students have suffered education-wise.
Absolutely.
To anybody say that they haven't, you're not in the real world,
right?
Because there's no substitute for being in person with the
absolutely.
teaching.
And so again, we will make sure that we follow all the protocols, but again, really hone in on what's best for our kids. I've never been a proponent of teaching to a test or making sure that, oh my God, we have these high numbers that we pass tests. That would be great, but that's just a snapshot in kind of one day, one experience for a student. I mean, we look at the overall breadth of their experience and try to give them the best experience as possible.
Okay, so now you've spoken about a little bit about what folks can expect. What about, like, say, starting that child watch all the way up to the high school?
Yeah, sure. Child watch meaning the preschool?
The preschool.
Yeah. So we're lucky enough to be able to partner with the state for the preschool expansion aid, and we have almost 600 kids going to Piscataway schools preschool for free, which is fantastic. And we love that program. It works out well. We were able to add another building to the program. So now we have 3 locations of Children's Corner. And again, we have almost 600 kids in our full day preschool program. So we're really, really excited about that. The expansion of that program and the foundation that could build for our kids heading into kindergarten and elementary school is unmatched. It's fantastic.
Well, I think that's just piggybacking off the Head Start program to a certain extent.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's just put it this way: if a child can get in there and learn a little bit more before they would normally step
socialize,
through the door,
learn some things, learn how to get through, feel comfortable outside of the home. It's just fantastic, and it helps parents who need to work, things like that. And we're happy to provide services and again the supports that families need from age 3. So it's good. So
you just spoke about Head Start. So when they get through kindergarten to the grade school, what are folks what are the?
Yeah, so we revamp our curriculum every year, right? What we did, and another one of our goals, I'll kind of tie this one into it, is especially at the elementary level. This one, goes through all the grades, but this one will affect the elementary level as well. We recently created a diversity, equity, and inclusion department. Right, Alex Gray is our director, Dr. Alex Gray, very, very well known in the community, and he's doing a great job. And so we take that department and we try to talk about equity and access, and make sure that our curriculum, make sure that our extracurricular activities are all equally accessible, and children see themselves in whether it be advisors or curriculum reading. Movies, things like that. So it's really important for us, the diversity, equity, and inclusion. We've been doing it for years. Our teachers and our administrators have been training and learning about diversity and equity and inclusion for years. And we were lucky enough to be able to form this department. I thank the board for their support and the township. I think it's really important that we work together as far as this wonderfully diverse town, making sure that everybody feels comfortable with the access that they have. So as we work with the standards of New Jersey, we also, again, as I continue to, that's my theme, right? Craft it for the people of Piscataway and make sure that we're taking care of our own.
So you started that department. Was there any other nuances through that department and or other departments?
Yeah, so we're looking at, through all our schools, to create a DEI committee in the school to basically actually do all of those things that I talked about, right? Look at the curriculum, look at the multicultural days, look at the access to, whether it be honors courses, whether it be accelerated classes, extracurricular activities, right? Transportation might be an issue for people, right? That's an equity issue, right? So we're really trying to, give every building some ownership about the diversity and equity in their classrooms.
Well, you're
Wait
right
till
about,
I get to the high school, though. You're going to love
right
this one.
about the transportation, because you may have a student that lives on the north side 4 or 5 miles away, or on the south side, depending upon to get to whatever school. I mean, especially to the high school.
Yeah. So one thing that I do want to mention is one of the board goals as well is making experiences more available for non-college bound learners.
Okay.
And this will help, this will start basically in middle school to talk about
building trades.
Building trades, things like
Yeah.
that, and move through high school where, we're taking field trips to building trades, right? We're having building trades come in and speak to our kids about that being a viable option. Because we know everybody's path to success is different. And we want to make sure that we're taking care of, again, the kids who, can and want to, go to a building trade and really learn those skills, which are so desperately needed in these days, right? And so we're really excited about that.
I think that's ironic that the district's moving back in sort of that model because, like when my brothers went in the 60s and 70s, there was a vocational component down at the high school where they could take up trades, electrical and things like that, plumbing. And then over time, it morphed into just solely college-bound students.
So
that was district. And it wasn't just Piscataway.
No,
it
all
was
over.
most of the districts statewide were doing that.
And with the inception, not the inception, but the more emphasis on vocational schools being there for students like that, the finances kind of steered us in that direction, right? But we still hold on in Piscataway at the high school to some career and technical education in our business, our engineering, things like that. And we have wood shop, right? We have electric, things of that nature. But we really want to make sure that it's a viable option that we talk about more, right? That kids, even if they're not in those trades in school, at the high school, can understand. Like I can go to a business school for a couple of years and then do a trade and maybe start my own business, things like that. I think that's really important that we, again, keep all the options open for our kids because we know college is not the option for everybody, right? It might be for most. And that might be what we like to see sometimes.
Well, it's kind of funny because my older brothers, they were at the Piscataway High School print shop, and they went into the printing end.
Yeah.
And then they made a living off of that.
Yeah.
And, to say, ultimately they retired, but, it was that was their vocational trade.
Sure. And if you look around, it's really difficult to get electricians or plumbers or even landscapers to come right now. So there are many viable careers. We want to make sure we have those discussions and that access to kids. Again, that equity access to kids and families.
Well, if you speak with some of the heads of the building trades, they'll tell you that they're concerned about the next generation coming up to do that, and as well as the professionals, like civil engineers and things like that, you're going to need that because there's a generational change. So
as society changes, we have to change with it, and we think we're on top of what we need to be doing.
That's good. Any other afterthoughts right there? You're going to be
So again, curricular-wise, we're really excited about the things that we offer our kids. Middle school, we have a lot of options for kids. We will be having. You're familiar with the Piscataway High School experience?
Yes.
We will be having a middle school experience for 6th grade parents in October, so they could kind of understand as they enter as a parent. How do I join the National Junior Honor Society? What options do I have for electives? Things like that. So we're excited about bringing the middle school experience to Piscataway, and subsequently we'll probably do that in May of every year for the current 5th grade class.
Okay, so they get an idea
of what to expect before they go. Things like that. So we're excited. And then of course we have athletics. We're really excited about athletics.
And athletics are very important in our town, not only keep people mentally going, but also physically for public health reasons.
Absolutely. We're really happy about the participation. It's up. Kids out, exercising, socializing, doing things together as a team, learning those life skills on the football field or the basketball court or the soccer field, gymnastics, whatever it may be. We're excited about that. And we have a litany of middle school sports. Basketball, let's do fall sports, right? Soccer, field hockey, cross country. Now we have football and cheerleading. So we're really excited about our middle school options. And then we go to high school, and it's just a wonderful program.
Well, I know up on Green Acres, it's kind of funny because I know Coach Higgins I bump into him up there.
Yeah.
I know things are getting close when the grass gets striped for the practice field.
Absolutely. So we have, speaking of football, we have a lot of returning players. They've been really focused on the off-season, weight room, things like that, working extremely hard. And, we're going to be competitive. We have a tough schedule. We open on the 2nd against Hunterdon Central, and play the likes of Old Bridge, South Brunswick, New Brunswick, Sayreville, things like that. So we're going to be competitive, and we're excited to get back on the horse.
So I have to laugh. Over the summer, I would see a lot of the high school students over at the community center in the weight area, which has become the new hangout place for the sports teams. After they're done with their practices with the coaches at the high school, then they go down to the community center and continue their practices.
Yeah. So this community center that is in Piscataway is fantastic for us, and you've been great opening your arms to say whatever you guys want to do here and whatever we could fit in, we'll do. And the kids love it. I mean, we have a weight room at the high school.
Yep.
It's not as large as the one there, but they use both sites. And at the high school there a lot of coaches are able to be around, things like that. So, but yeah, we the kids, not only in football but all the sports, worked really hard on the off season.
Well, I know the high school swim team loves it as their home.
That's great.
Home pool.
Yeah, not many school districts have that.
No. Yeah. They really enjoy it, especially the outgoing seniors with the, to finally get a place that they can call their home.
Yeah, sure.
So.
Sure.
Well, good, Doctor. Any last minute
comments?
comments?
One last thing I think is really important, and I guess the board, the district, the administrators, and even the staff members are want to push a common theme this year of parent engagement. I think it's really important to get kind of back to that, where maybe COVID interrupted that. There's no better partnership than we can have than with the parents. And the experiences that they could help give their kids and themselves as well, right? The booster club, the PTO, things of that nature I think are really important. But if we can get more parents at things, we'd be really excited, and it'll really enhance the experience for the kids.
No, I hope so. Well, Dr. Ranelli, thank you for stopping by on Piscataway. We look forward to seeing all the students back in, and I want to remind the parents and everybody out there, when you're driving around town when school comes open, I know our engineering department of Public Works is in the process of putting more safety features down on the roads near a lot of the schools, so because more kids are biking to school and walking to school than before. So.
Tuesday, September 6th, first day of school. We're excited.
Right after Labor Day.
Yep, right after Labor Day.
So we'll see you, and good luck in the 2022 and 2023 school year coming up.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
भारत माता की जय भारत माता की जय Thank you everybody. This year is our 75th years.
And we all have something very much in common. We are India is the largest democracy in the world, and we're the oldest democracy in the world in the United States. And it's very interesting, and I want to congratulate you all for keeping your homeland alive, just much the way the Irish, the Italians, and the English, and everybody else keeps their homelands alive like that, and remembering that.
I thanks everybody for sparing their time and inaugurating our flag for the 75th year. So Mayor, our ME, and our all guests, policemen, everybody, all the members, I thank you very much for coming and sparing your time and enjoying this 75th flag hosting ceremony. Thank you.
We used to learn about history. Again, the similarities are here. India got their independence from British. America also got their independence from British. There was violence and non-violence in both sides. In India also, the struggle was sometimes violent, sometimes non-violent, but it was a struggle. Both the countries have gone through a similar struggle.
I want to thank all of you for being involved in our community. In all seriousness, you know, it's not easy when you come from another country to make it into your new country out there. Sometimes there's I guess, a lack of learning to go on and to bring your culture in and for other people to understand. But now you've had successive generations now that have immigrated from India to the United States. So you have, a lot of cases, at least 3 generations, right? Could be possibly even 4 generations that are now in this country. We're all part of a larger country, and we can all still have our individuality and still have our faith and beliefs in what we believed in back in home, but still strive for a better life here in the United States. Because isn't that what we always want to make sure the next generation has a better life than the current generation.
I want to thank the council members for being down here for the ribbon cutting of the newest edition of the Columbus Park here. This is the new handicap accessible overlook here right by the dam, right behind the dam. So if anybody who's wheelchair bound can come down and enjoy the same amenities as they do over at the other side of the park. And also they can, if somebody wants to fish off here, they can fish off of here. So I want to thank Senator Booker and Senator Menendez and Congressman Pallone, because this was paid for by federal money, designed by our landscape architect Henry Hinterstein here. And this is phase 4 of the ongoing 15-year improvement now of the Columbus Park area, which now phase 5 is currently under design down by the north of the, we should say east of the Washington Avenue Bridge. But I am very proud, as well as the council members here, that this gorgeous addition that we have here and the aesthetics. So when you come down Stelton Road, if you're driving by or biking or walking, it really is a pleasant area. And I want to thank Councilman Rouse, Councilman Shaw, Councilman Earn, Councilman Lombardi, and Councilwoman Cahill for being here. And we're going to give the honors for cutting the ribbon today to Councilman Earn, this is Ward 1 right here. So with that, take it away, Councilman.
1, 2, 3.
Good. Now there you go. So I'm encouraging everybody, please come down and enjoy the amenities down here at Columbus Park in the New Market section of Piscataway. Thank you. About 200 miles south, and we're going to talk about some of the issues emanating out of Washington, D.C., where We have on the show today Ms. Hanna Mori from the office of Senator Booker down in Washington, and also somebody who's no stranger to a lot of Piscataway residents is Matt Monteiko from Congressman Pallone's office. So just recently, there was a bill signing at the White House with President Biden, and I saw that our local Congressman Pallone was beside the president during the signing. There was a bill called the Deficit Reduction Act. I'm assuming I got the correct acronym of it. Can you two do a tag team going back and forth and explaining what people can expect, homeowners, business owners, everyday folks might expect about the significance of this large bill signing?
I think something that folks may have already heard, the Inflation Reduction Act is the single largest congressional investment ever made to tackle the climate crisis and strengthen the American energy security. It's a huge, massive bill. It goes far beyond what we've ever done on climate, but it also provides a lot of much needed assistance directly to families through some of the healthcare, cost reductions. So,
you just mentioned the healthcare reductions, and I know Matt, your boss, Congressman Pallone, that's been his ballywick for all of his time in Congress, and being at the seat of the chairmanship of the Energy Commerce Committee. For seniors in the state, not just in Piscataway Township, for seniors nationally and especially in the state of New Jersey, what does that actually mean for them, for prescription drugs, pricing, things along that line? Maybe you can talk a little bit specifically about that, and then we'll go down the pecking order.
Sure. Yeah, Mayor, and thank you again for having us on here to talk about this historic bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, otherwise known as the IRA. And a lot of the provisions in this bill are really a culmination of the work that Congressman Pallone has been doing over so many years to try and get prescription costs down. We'll talk more about the climate stuff in a little bit, but it does some very specific things to reduce costs for seniors specifically. And we do think it'll have a larger effect on other consumers as well. But for the first time, the federal government will be able to negotiate, under the guise of Medicare with pharmaceutical companies. It starts off with 10 drugs that will be set by the Health and Human Services Agency that we'll be able to negotiate prices. And this is going to save significant, costs for seniors and their prescription drugs, and that will expand to 20, by 2029, and we expect this is going to save $100 billion to the federal government over that. It also caps Medicare beneficiaries out-of-pocket costs at $2,000 a year. With the ability to spread the cost over monthly payments effective in 2025.
So let me stop you right there to interject.
Yeah.
So let me just explain. So for a per year, say starting January 1st to December 31st, a Medicare eligible resident will not expect to see more than $2,000 in out-of-pocket costs.
That's correct.
So,
yeah.
And that is spread out over a 12-month period?
It can be, they can spread the cost over monthly payments.
Okay.
It says starting in 2025. So some of this is going to take a few years to implement. You're not going to see those savings starting next year, but it will, starting next year, the Medicare will start to negotiate the price of 10 prescription drugs with pharmaceutical companies. But that cap, that $2,000 a year, which still sounds like a lot of money, and it is, especially to someone on a fixed income. but I would know that many seniors, including my parents, have more than $2,000 of out-of-pocket expense for their pharmaceutical drugs that they need to take to keep them healthy. So, you know, that's gonna provide significant savings to our seniors for sure.
So, I mean, I've been mayor for 22 years, on the township governing for 30 years. I never quite understood why the federal government could never negotiate prices. When they do that and they go out to bid for defense contracts and everything else in the government system, they do by public bidding, but yet weren't allowed to do that when it came to drugs that they had to pay for.
Yeah, I mean, so it's unfortunate, and I'm glad that we're changing it, because almost every other industrialized country does it. And the American consumer is getting fleeced with high prescription drug costs, where other countries are paying way less than we are because their governments are negotiating those prices. I just on a little background, I mean, that's something that I think it was in the early 2000s when they did the Part D prescription drug benefit bill, that there was a part of that bill that specifically didn't allow the government to negotiate for Medicare. So this changes that. And so that's, you know, I don't know why they did it back then. It's certainly not something Congressman Pallone supported at the time, but we're glad that it's in here now.
So Hanna, just for you to jump in, so I'm assuming that it'll take maybe a year for the rulemaking process with these agencies to get everything in place before it goes into literally in effect?
So the phase-in period for that is expected for 2026. So it's going to take, it sounds like, more than a year. And that was, written into the law. But hearkening back to something that you said earlier, just how kind of ludicrous, right, it is that the United States is unable to negotiate prices directly. CMS is the single largest payer of healthcare in the country. And so for, the bargaining power that CMS has, the potential there to really kind of drive down costs, especially in the prescription drug market, is an untapped, resource that I think is going to help a lot of folks. And, it's coming in kind of a phased in gradual process. Starting in 2026, we'll start with the 10 drugs that Matt mentioned, and that will increase slowly every year, building on those original 10, and eventually up to at least 100 drugs that CMS will be negotiating directly on behalf of Medicare beneficiaries.
Well, I gotta believe market forces that the federal government's going to be doing that for Medicare eligible clients, that it'll end up having a multiplier effect for everybody else who's not covered under Medicare, that ultimately the drug costs will in theory come down even for people who aren't eligible.
I think, I do agree. That is a goal, and something that a lot of economists and experts in the healthcare field are expecting. You take something like insulin, for example, right? A drug that, millions and millions of people in the United States rely on to live. 1 in 10 people in the US have diabetes. Over 77,000 New Jersey Medicare beneficiaries used insulin in 2020. And so the fact that we've seen this drug that's been around for decades, slowly rising in prices year after year for quite some time, it's kind of seemed inexplicable. And one of the most important things in this healthcare space that the Inflation Reduction Act does is cap the cost of insulin to $35 a month for Medicare beneficiaries, right? And so anybody who's on Medicare, they're used to spending hundreds of dollars a year on insulin, which they need to live. And going forward, that's starting next year. This one is actually starting in 2023. That's going to be capped at $35 a month. And so we fully, hope that this kind of price adjustment and these price controls are going to kind of trickle throughout the system, and hopefully we'll see kind of a greater regulation in prices, not just for Medicare beneficiaries, but perhaps Medicaid and private insurers as well.
And Mayor, I will also add a couple things. One, insurance companies are big conglomerates, right? If Medicare is paying $35 for their insulin, but they're going to be charged $100, for their clients and the private insurance company, they're not going to say, oh, sure, why not? We'll pay more than Medicare. They're going to want to negotiate a lower price too. So that's why we really do believe that it's going to bring down the cost for everybody in the long term, which is a good thing. And I'll just add that we wanted these provisions to apply to private insurance. But unfortunately, we didn't have the votes for that in the budget reconciliation process that we had to do to get this bill passed didn't allow us to include private insurance. So we're not going to stop trying. That's why it's just not in this bill. And then just one other thing, this bill also penalizes drug companies for outrageous price hikes as well, that exceed the rate of inflation. So even though if we're not negotiating the price of a drug, they still can't have these ridiculous price hikes year over year if it's exceeding the rate of inflation. They're going to be penalized by the government.
So,
Yes.
All right, so insulin's a good thing. There's a bunch of, over the next, say, 5 years, there'll be up to maybe 20 drugs that are going to do. So who decides what drugs are going to be doing? Is it the U.S. Department of Health that decides which drugs, or was it written actually as part of the bill naming the actual drugs?
The specific drugs were not named in the legislation, but there is a formula, which is extremely complex. I was looking at some of the numbers earlier, and it dictates, what are those kind of most used, most expensive drugs that CMS is buying each year, and then those will be kind of, that basis will be used to determine what exactly are those drugs. I can tell you that, in 2019, for example, the top selling Part D covered drugs with no generic or biosimilar were, medications for cancer, diabetes medications, arthritis, and some anticoagulants, which prevent blood clots. So those are the kind of, really critical life-saving drugs that we expect to be within, that first year, the top 10 that CMS is going to be negotiating.
So that sounds sensible, because obviously you want to get whatever the heavy usage is. That's what you want to, go out to bid on, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. And for the 10 that I just mentioned from 2019, those 10 drugs constituted about 0.3% of all of the covered products. But in terms of cost, it accounted for 16% of total Part D funding. So they're extremely expensive. The potential impact for cost savings when you're thinking about, how expensive these drugs are, is really, groundbreaking for this bill.
So as part of this Deficit Reduction Act, were there any other health issues as part of that other than the prescription drug angle?
There's a ton in there for seniors that we've covered pretty extensively. The one thing that I'll add on seniors is, starting next year in 2023, all vaccines will be free for seniors as well, which is kind of surprising that it wasn't free already. And then
I want to hold that thought. If you think you're a member of the general public, let's step back and think about that. Wouldn't it behoove the insurance industry and everybody else to have free vaccines for seniors, because it would eventually minimize costs for the healthcare in the long run?
Yes.
It would seem only common sense.
It really does. It's not only saving lives, but it makes complete financial sense, to make vaccines free. This is a simple cost saving measure.
Okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to go into Matt's boss's bailiwick, so to speak, the environment. What does this bill do for the environment, or what is it expected to accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, Mayor, the Inflation Reduction Act is the single largest investment in climate action programs in American history. It invests $370 billion, and it positions the US to meet the Paris Climate Agreement commitment that was made under President Obama. So, I mean, it really is a big deal, right? Climate change is real. Climate change is human induced, and something needs to be done. And we are going to reduce our carbon emissions by 40% by 2030, which meets the standards that the scientists are saying the levels that we need to reach to keep our planet from warming past the point of no return. So, I mean, it does it in a number of ways. I'll just list, 5 real quick. One, it's an economy-wide decarbonization. It lowers energy costs for consumers. It combats environmental injustice. It increases energy security. And it supports resilient coastal and rural communities. And we can go into a little bit of the specifics in those points. But really, through Congressman Pallone's leadership as chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, a lot of these provisions came out of a bill that the congressman had put forward, or not a bill, but a framework that we call the Clean Future Act. And through some other things that he's been working on over the years, called the Superfund Polluter Pays Act. You can clean up there's a lot of money in this bill to clean up toxic waste. New Jersey has the most Superfund sites in the nation, so it's a big deal for New Jersey. Some, right here in Middlesex County. And our Living Shorelines Act, which, provides funds for coastal communities, to protect their shoreline with natural, improvements to prevent flooding.
I read that there was going to be some tax credits. So if you want to buy energy efficient windows or, furnaces or whatever. So what can people expect from then? When can they file for it? Is it retroactive for January 1st, 2022, or is it moving forward in 2023?
That's right. It's moving forward, Mayor, in 2023. And there is a variety, a menu of tax credits and rebates that are going to be available to families, and local governments, state governments. It really runs the gamut. I think some of the most significant tax credits and rebates that are going to be available to folks is probably at the regular consumer level, directly to families. There are, as you mentioned, rebates that are going to cover anywhere from 50 to 100% of the cost of installing new electric appliances. That's things like heat pumps and water heaters and clothes dryers and stoves and ovens. And that means, millions of households in New Jersey are going to be eligible for those rebates because of their income. And then there's also tax credits for the installation of solar panels, for example, and the potential to affect over 270,000 additional New Jersey households through this new tax credit. It covers up to 30% of the installation costs, and it also allows you some leeway to make improvements that are going to reduce energy leakage and upgrade some heating and cooling equipment so that the homes themselves are more efficient and saving energy. in all this the solar program is probably one of the more exciting.
Well, I know there was an
American-
article, I guess the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities evidently is very excited about this because it's going to mean more, I guess, credits and stuff like that for people to install solar.
Last thing, and I'll hand it over to you, Max. I know this is your boss's wheelhouse as well. So, just with solar, some of the estimates have said that a family will save up to $9,000 over the life of the system, or $300 per year. And so that's a significant amount of money that's going to be on the table through the solar program.
Go ahead, Matt.
She said exactly what I was going to say.
Oh, sorry, Matt.
No, not at all. This is all good stuff. So, yeah, I mean, some of those numbers, right? 7.5 million more families will be able to install solar on their roofs with a 30% tax credit. And that's pretty big. And I think one of the great things about this bill is that they're not mandates, right? We're not telling you can't have that gas water heater, right? But we're providing incentives for people that want to become more energy efficient and saving them money at the same time. So I think that's what's good about it.
And here, if anybody, deserves more money in your pocket for investments that you're making in your home, it's New Jersey homeowners, right? We lost our full state and local tax deduction years ago.
Well, I dubbed that the Screw New Jersey bill when it was signed into law.
And I think you'd be right. It seemed to us very intentional as well as to which states that program was targeting, right? And the cost of living here in New Jersey, as we all know, is already so expensive and disproportionate to most of the rest of the country. And so if there's anywhere that really needs these kind of federal rebates and tax incentives for the investments that we're making into our homes, it's New Jersey residents. And so we're very glad to see some of these things. Not glad that the cap repeal was not included in the bill, which is something that I know Senator Booker and Congressman Pallone and others really fought for as well. But we'll continue to kind of push for that. In the meantime, there are a lot of great new programs under the Inflation Reduction Act that homeowners are going to be able to take advantage of.
So with that, I want to thank you, Hanna Mori from Senator Booker's office and Matt Monteiko from Congressman Pallone's office for spending some time with us on Piscataway. And I think at one point after the election, I think we're going to try to get the senator and the congressman on the show to talk about it, because the rulemaking and everything like that at the federal level will be a little bit more clearer because the ink's not even dry yet on the bill that was passed into law yet. So we look forward to having them back on the show. And then obviously you two of you are always welcome back on the show.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor.
Well, thank you. And you have an enjoyable month of September. We'll see you then. I want to thank everybody for watching this September Eye on Piscataway, and I hope you picked up some information from Dr. Ranelli, Matt Monteiko from Congressman Pallone's office, and Hanna Mori from Senator Booker's office. So with that, we're going to close out the show with the two concerts that took place in the month of August at the Columbus Park Gazebo. And we'll see you in October.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a little funk, little R&B, a little old school, new school, some of everything. So we hope you're going to stick around and listen to what we have to play for you this evening. Let's try a little old stuff. Here we go. So bring your good times and your laughter too. We
want to thank everybody for coming out this season, and I'm going to give you all credit for the weather tonight. This is the best weather that we've had.
Moving on with us, y'all, all right? Day after day, I'm more confused. I look from the light to the pouring rain. I know that's the game that I hate to lose. And hear the shame. Same old, from killing the people to free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Oh, killing the people to free my soul. I wanna get lost in your rock and roll and drift away. Wanna take me away. Seems to me that